Hi, I'm James, and a special nautical theme today. We're looking at this, Hostile Waters, the latest supplement for Twilight 2000, released by Free League, based on the first edition Pirates of the Vistula. So, is it time to start wearing a parrot on your shoulder, putting on an eye patch, and sailing down the Vistula? Let's find out. Hi, I'm James, and today we've got an unboxing and review for the latest Free League supplement for Twilight 2000, Hostile Waters. I've been quite looking forward to this. It's got a lovely evocative cover there. I do like the look, and the blue theme kind of fits with the fact it's, as the name implies, a maritime supplement. So we've got a little bit of flavour text on the back and a list of contents. I'm not going to look too much at that because I think it's going to be much better if we actually look through it ourselves, but it is very much intended as a reimagining of the Pirates of the Vistula, which, if I'm honest, has to be one of my favourite modules from the first edition. So let's open it up and have a look. So we've got the box, we've got the manual. It's not exactly the thinnest of manuals. They never are with Free League. So let's have a look. 104 pages of content. I'm just looking if that includes the covers. 104 pages plus the covers. So we'll come back and look at that in a few minutes. So we've got our encounter deck. So the encounters, you know, like all Twilight 2000 products by Free League, these will actually, the cards can be used or they are in the manual. I do like the cards. So let's have a look what we've got. Let's pick a couple at random. The Tempest. A sudden storm comes in, leaving no time to get the ship to safety. The weather immediately turns to heavy rain, no matter what it was before. Also, due to the strong winds, the helmsman must make an additional driving skill roll, modified by the boatman's speciality and the terrain type to avoid a mishap. So that's fairly predictable. Boarding party, okay. A Soviet military patrol, a Zuk class boat with half a tank and one reload for the NSV approaches. The patrol is looking for US stragglers and resistance fighters and demand to search the PC's boat. Any American found will be arrested and anyone who resisted will be attacked. Any weapons will be confiscated. Okay. Who remembers the old scene in the Guns of Navarone? Boy, would that work nicely with that one. We'll do one more. Freebooter Shakedown. Pirates in a fishing boat and speedboat, each with half tanks of alcohol fuel, are blockading the way. They are ready to negotiate with the PCs and will let them pass for the right price. They will defend themselves if attacked. They are armed with AKMs and the group has one RPG-16 with one reload. Yeah, we've still got the traditional RPG-16. You know, it wasn't common, it was only used by the paras, and yet it seems to crop up far too much in the game. Yeah, it's a bit of a bugbear, but you can easily change that. To be honest, I probably would vary that a little because I don't want that to happen repeatedly. So yeah, one with an RPG. Perhaps the next one we come across has got an RPG-18. You know, they were quite common. RPG-22. Have a bit of variety. So we've got a little bit of silica, yeah. We've got the catalogue from Free League, always worth a look through. Then we've got some maps. So let's tilt that upside down to get that out. So let's have a look what we've got map-wise. So some of these are scenario-based, some of these are more generic. So we've got a small group of boats there. I know that's used for the floating harbour. We've got our old favourite. Anybody who played the first edition Pirates of the Vistula, you'll remember this when this was used as your main transport. So we've got, what else have we got? We've got a dock, just a bit of generic coastline. And there is a new terrain type now. There's not just the shallow water, you've now got deep water as an option. So yeah, it looks like industrial complex on the end of some water, another bank. So these are nice generic ones. Now this one I like, a lock. Yeah, that's quite a useful little one. More generic sort of ones. A small island, more coastline. And if you notice with these, the rivers are actually, he says trying to find two rivers. Let's just get plain back on that one. You could obviously match some of these up, but when you have the coasts, again, they are designed so that you can slot them together. So they're nice generic maps. And there we go. I said we had a river, and you can see the rivers, the same applies. So we've got a bridge and more. I can't try to tell if that's just plain. Yeah, it is just plain black. It might have been nice to have had some more variation on some of them. So we've then got another river. So it seems like the generic rivers are just plain backed, whereas the scenario ones are double-sided. So that's quite a useful one. We've got the dockside warehouse. Then we've got a double-sized one. Now this is quite an interesting one. We've got an island. Okay, I believe that is one of the scenario sites, and an Ohio class nuclear submarine. And we'll talk a bit about that as we come to the scenarios. So we've then got a castle on the coast, and we've got the submarine at sea, because you might need to board it. We've then got a really big map. And I mean really big. So it's what? So it's A4, 3, 2. It's A1 size if they're A4 pages, and it basically is intended to connect the two maps in the base game. So you have southern Sweden and North Poland. So I'm just looking how far back across that goes. So it goes back to we just get, I'll just spin that slightly across. You can see there we're actually just getting across to Berlin. So we are sort of covering a bit of Germany. Yeah, it's just the traditional sort of maps there. They are very useful. And then what we've got here is we've got the ship counters. So they come in. I like the fact they've done them in a few colours. That's quite useful. And you've got sort of generic small boats through to sort of larger boats. When you realize that's in actually scale, those are in scale with the submarine. You do get an idea how big that submarine is. So that's the bits and pieces. Let's actually have a look at the book itself. So got the usual page there, sort of all the credits, contents, and again I do love the artwork on anything by Free League. So we've got a little bit of introduction, mankind's oldest highways. Again, you've got the traditional sort of art that you expect from Free League, and it talks about water travel, a few pages on that. Does make some very interesting points, and it does particularly pick up something that I think has been missed, which is fresh water, and it actually observes the fact that water is a major resource in the game, having access to fresh water. So that's an interesting point. I was reminded of the General Sir John Hackett, the Third World War, where he actually does talk about water as potentially one of the biggest causes for war. So it's an interesting point. So we then come on to naval warfare, and we've got a picture, sort of recreation of the picture on the cover. So this is the new rules section. So we've got some new rules for water combat. And obviously it does make a difference with boats, because boats are somewhat bigger than anything we've had before, and it talks about how that affects the rules for the larger boats. You've got separate rules for component damage on boats, because obviously there is an extra factor with boats in that they're going to sink. We've got a very nice little encounter, talking it through. We've got some new weapons, so we're looking at things like anti-ship missiles, surface-to-air missiles and torpedoes, and mines, and we're talking here naval mines. Rules for water travel mishaps, watercraft, and it talks about the crew sizes. So we've got some new weapons. There's not a lot in there that I think we're ever really going to find. They're mainly the weapon systems you will find on boats, going all the way up to, bizarrely, the harpoon missile. Now we've got various boats. We've got civilian watercraft, so the inflatable dinghy, rowboats, speedboats. Unfortunately missing out something like the rigid raider, which I'll create the stats for and put onto my webpage at some point. We've got sailboats, tugboats. Tugboats are a really good class for the vehicle for the PCs. Fishing boats. Then we come into the military craft. There's some interesting ones. The Mark V Special Operations craft. I think that's quite an interesting one. It's obviously designed for inserting special forces. You know, the Pegasus class hydrofoil. Some of these are more rivers, some are more coastal, but there's some nice variety there. We've got some Russian ones. The Zuk class, that seems to be the favourite of the designers. It's probably quite a reasonable sort of size. And obviously they then get a bit larger. We've got some Polish ones. Now it talks about the Moskit, various others. I particularly noted the Komar class. Now the Komar class were originally Russian, but then they're still in Polish service, and they are the first ship to sink another one with missiles in 1967. So some of these boats are going to be old. We've then got some Swedish boats, and then some NATO ones. I do think some of these were, I hate to say this, almost just let's chuck something in for NATO countries. So you got the Archer class patrol vessel. Now that I do find a really interesting one, because it's actually used by Oxford and Cambridge universities naval cadets. So I could use that in my UK campaigns. That's going to be an interesting one. We've then got a Russian and a French class ship, which is quite a nice idea. So there's not a lot, and I do get a feeling there will be expansions on that. So then we come to water encounters. Well, this is just like all the other ones. We've got the cards basically in book form. Now that was an interesting one, the Old Man and the Sea, where there is a little bit of referencing stuff in there. The Old Man and the Sea, of course, is the Hemingway short story. Bridge Over Troubled Water. You can see that they have tried to use various names. Stowaways, that's another interesting one. A few little bits of radio chatter. I did like some of them. You can never have too many examples of radio chatter in Twilight 2000, and that's why I actually did Radio Watch for anybody who's not seen that. So nice little chapter there. Some new factions. Now this, I think, is where we got some very interesting bits and pieces. The Pirates of the Vistula. Yeah, Sea Wolves if you're playing a Swedish campaign. These guys will be familiar to you if you played the first edition Pirates of the Vistula. These are the guys from it. They've changed some of the NPCs, and I'm not 100% convinced on how they've done some of the NPCs, how they see pirates. They're very anarchic, and they say they're harder to hold together than a marauder band. I would suggest that they are actually easier to hold together because it's performing as a crew, and you can't really wander off the way you can as a marauder. So I'm not convinced on that. There's some links into Baron Zani. Yeah, so we can see that one building up ready. I like the leader. She's an interesting little character. You've got various other, there's another sort of deputy there. We've then got the US 6th Fleet. Now, that was an interesting choice. They are far less powerful than you'd expect them to be, and you've actually got the details of their rear admiral. So, you know, that's interesting. Now, Russian naval Spetsnaz. Okay, that's a nice little group. There's not a lot of detail there, particularly since, you know, for a faction there's a grand total of 12 of them. But nice enough little group. Could make a really good rival group for the PCs to keep encountering, particularly in some of the scenarios. And this I liked, the troop. These are a bunch of travelling players, and what they're doing is they're wandering around Poland or Sweden, and they are basically trying to earn a living by entertaining. What are they using to entertain? Well, we've got a little list of what their repertoire is. So you've got things like Hamlet, As You Like It. They seem to like Shakespeare, which didn't really fit for me. I think perhaps they should have looked more at Polish literature. But there are some other ones in there. Death of a Salesman. Now, I did love the next one, which was the Star Wars trilogy, and they actually act out the Star Wars trilogy on stage, and it notes that what happens for the space scenes is you actually have cardboard spaceships on sticks. I'd love to see that. I think that's going to be really good, and boy, could you have a bit of fun with that. I really think that would be a good one. They also do some of the original Star Trek episodes. Clash of the Titans. That was an interesting one. Again, I can see that one being interesting. And bear in mind, you'd be looking back at the classic version of that. And Passion Play. So there are some interesting plays in there. I probably would add a couple of others in there. Change out some of the Shakespeare for something that fitted the background better. But yeah. I wasn't as impressed by the NPCs for this. They've tried to make them quite vague, so rather than even giving them names, you actually just have the main part they play in Hamlet, and they are very loosely based on that. I'd like something changing with that, so I will probably change these. So you've got one for Hamlet, one for Ophelia, Claudius, Horatio, and Gertrude. So they do share some similarities with them. Many of them are actual pre-war actors, some successful, some not. One of them is hiding a big secret. Yeah, it's Twilight 2000. It wouldn't be if they didn't. And I'm trying not to spoil it there. Now, this illustration, submarine at dock. That remind you of anything? It's the first episode of The Last Sub, isn't it? Yeah. Guess what they've done again? It's not just Pirates of the Vistula. It's also taking some inspiration from that. So we have a few bits and pieces. We have Operation Reset with a bit of an explanation as to what's going on, although it's not going to be fully revealed until we get to the Operation Reset. I personally think I'm getting an idea what Operation Reset is all about, and I think there's a lot of links back to the very first edition scenario. So you've got a bit of detail on that and where you can start giving them more clues. We've got the prisoner, and some of these will link to some of the factions. So the prisoner basically gives you a prisoner that wants rescuing. Not a long scenario that. It starts there, finishes there. And what they do with them, with all of these, is they do give you a timeline where what events happen in what sequence, so you can see what's going to happen. Now Boomer, this was interesting. This is the one with the Ohio class submarine. So again, I'm not going to go into detail and spoil it, but there's some nice ideas there. And then I turned the page and went, oh wow, Going Home. We already have the details for Going Home. But, there's always a but, isn't there? it's not very detailed, just over half a page. We haven't got anything on the train, which was critical to that scenario. There are some nice fan works out there with trains, so you could use that. And the other snag, of course, is we saw the map only went as far across as Berlin. Well, when we actually played the original of this, it's Bremerhaven, the other side of Germany. We haven't got a map for that. I just wish they'd held this off till the end of Reset and given us that. I live in hope that that will be expanded on. We've got Water Wars. That's an interesting scenario where it's down to two communities fighting over a water source, and which side do the PCs choose. So there's some nice little scenarios. We then get to the scenario sites. So as ever, what they've done with these is these are things that will slot in where we've got specific maps. So the River Queen, yeah, this was very much the Pirates of the Vistula, with nice little deck plans and our old friend Adam, the captain. Yeah, it's nice. It gives you the option to travel, and it is going to pick up on Operation Reset, which will be the next box set, because that is going to feature Warsaw. So that's probably a good one to use. You've got other crew members with potential for one of them to be somebody other than who you expect. You've got, I'm just trying to remember if she's CIA, a CIA contact for the PCs that may give them a mission linking into the River Queen. So you can see these are a lot longer than the actual factions and things. There's more to them. So we've now got the floating village. Okay, this was a site in the Pirates of the Vistula, and you've got basically a floating village, which is currently at odds with the river pirates, and you've got all the things they've got for trade. You've got various NPCs there. You've actually got details of the river pirates and their leader. You've got the castle. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I don't want to give away what's happening with some of these. But it may be the PCs end up storming the castle. Now you've got the Maine. Now the Maine is the Ohio class submarine, and I'm not going to spoil the twist as to what's going off with it. But you've got a lot of detail on it. You've got the maps repeated that we have in the separate ones. You've got the NPCs on it, and you've got a fair bit of detail on the Maine itself. So there's a fair bit there. But I did a bit of digging with this, and the Maine is an Ohio class nuclear submarine. Do I want PCs to get their hands on that? It's difficult. Now the Maine itself is the SSBN 741, which was commissioned in 1995. Now in the book here, it's been converted from an SSBN to an SSGN. So this is not ballistic missiles now. It is using conventional Tomahawk cruise missiles, and it's had some of the missile bays removed, and instead it's got a bay put in to let you get seals coming out of the tubes to land them. I like that. I mean, it's great from a game perspective, but this is where it brings up a problem. Only 4 of the Ohios were converted, which were the first 4, the Ohio, the Michigan, the Florida and the Georgia. And they weren't actually converted till 2002, returning to service in 2008. And the reason they changed was they felt there was less need for an SSBN. In Twilight 2000, there's just as much need. I think they're unlikely to have converted them. It was an odd change. Why use the Maine when we could have used one that actually did have it, albeit a few years later on? I'll leave that up to your decision for that, and whether you make that little retcon to put it back to what it was. We've then got the colony. Now this was an interesting idea. A utopian idealist society that is starting to fall apart. And if I say that one of the headings is chemical weapons, it might give you an idea how badly things are falling apart. So it's a nice little site for the PCs to encounter. I'm not entirely sure I'd use it. And we have an NPCs with secrets. Some of them not being who they say they are. I hate to say it, it's almost a trope now. I almost assume in Twilight 2000 there will be somebody who isn't who they say they are. I think we need to perhaps move away from that, guys. We've then got details on the Vistula. So it gives us a broad overview of the Vistula with a nice little map of it. We then get the Gota Canal, which is the Swedish equivalent of the Vistula for the campaign, and again we have the details on that with a 10 out of 10 for this Free League, an index. I love the fact that these books come with indexes, or indices if you want to be really posh. So that's what came in the box. What did I think of it? There's a lot of play sessions in there. The rules, there's nice new detail in the rule. Because obviously you now have the detail for using boats. You know, it's very much like the first edition Twilight 2000, this, isn't it? Almost every time we get a new module, we get a few new rules, as opposed to the old style, also second edition style, where you didn't get much from that perspective. Equipment-wise, there's not a lot to it. And I probably would do a few variations on the boats, but that's really picky for me, I suppose. I'd have rather more small boats. I don't think we need as many of the patrol boats as we've got. I definitely don't see the need for the French ship, unless that was a subtle nod to the submarine versus destroyer mention in the last submarine trilogy. That might be the reason they put it in, but considering we don't know what's going on in France yet, that's a bit of an awkward one. The maps and everything are really high quality, but I can't understand why they didn't double side some more of them. I think that would have been much more useful. It does note as well that urban ops will work quite nicely for fighting on board the boats, and I think that's a really good call, particularly on the submarine. It's got a good set of contents then. Some of the factions are quite nice, some of the scenarios are quite good. There's certainly enough there to keep you going. When you think of the original module, how long that one was for the Pirates of the Vistula, there is a heck of a lot more in this. I'm very disappointed in the Going Home one. That really wanted a lot more time devoted to it, and you know, I personally would have done that as a whole box set on its own, and gone basically map across Germany, detail all of Germany, and I think that would have been fantastic. But there's nothing stopping us doing that, I suppose. And if there's anybody out there who fancies having a go at that, please let me know. I'd love to work with you on that. Looking at all of that, was it good value for money? Yeah. Am I going to use it? Oh yes, definitely. It's probably useful for anybody playing a campaign. I think in Sweden actually it's potentially more useful because you're much more likely to use coastal craft. South end of Poland, a bit less. So nicely thought out, plenty of detail, and some very interesting material. I hope you found that useful. I now need to go away and work through the Black Madonna, which I am really looking forward to doing, and that will be following in the next few weeks. And a final little thank you as well to Free League. I ordered this and something went wrong on the order system, and when I looked on the shop app, it basically said your order's cancelled. Okay, I got in touch with Free League, I looked at it and went, oh yeah, it seems like there's been some problem. Not a problem, we'll get it sorted for you. and this was within 24 hours, and 48 hours later this and the Black Madonna arrived. So well done Free League on your customer service. See you soon for another review.